Thumbs up. All right, good morning. Now we'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. We'll begin with bill introductions. I do have one on behalf of our chair, and KLRD have reminded me it's RS 0993. This is on behalf of LAS, is that correct? And apparently we need to update statutes so that when we're not in session, it's not KLRD that's responsible for minutes, but it is LAS, just as LAS is responsible during the session. Didn't know that that was a statute, but there's the RS number. Any other bill introductions? Yes, Representative Howell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yesterday, I requested bill sponsorship for 25 RS 0556. However, I forgot to mention that it was requested by myself on behalf of the Kansas Association of Technical Colleges. So I wanted to make sure that I corrected that today.
All right, thank you, Representative. Do we have that addition? Okay. Any other bill introductions? No? All right, committee, we have an informational briefing this morning from BioNexus. Melissa Roberts, the chairman, is here and president of this regional innovation officer of BioHub. Do we have Melissa here? Is she on? Yes, Melissa, come on up. Melissa, we are glad to share this time with you, and just a reminder, about 10 minutes, and then committee will open up for any questions after your presentation. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Madam Vice Chair and members of the committee for having me today. My name is Melissa Roberts Chapman. I am a native Kansan and a Kansan still today. I'm also actually producing another Kansan right now, so forgive me if I'm a little out of breath. I lead an organization called the BioHub, and I'm here to talk with you about our efforts today. The BioHub is managed by BioNexus, a regional organization that's been representing the life science industry for more than 20 years. But the BioHub is a consortium of more than 125 organizations across the greater Kansas City region. And so the critical mass of these organizations ranges from McPherson and Manhattan, Kansas, all the way to Columbia, Missouri. It's a bi-state initiative. And together, we work to advance our region's innovation ecosystem to produce a specific kind of medicines called biologics. So biologics are medicines that are produced using living tissues or organisms. And while that sounds maybe a little futuristic and scary, I can guarantee that everyone in this room probably uses or loves someone who relies on a biologic every day to save their life or to improve their quality of life, because they include medicines like insulin or Humira, the arthritis drug. But biologic medicines aren't just used in humans, they're also used in animal populations or even to protect crops. So in a region where we often say that Kansas farmers and ranchers feed the world, biologics are used to keep our crops and livestock safe as well. And for that reason, they're important not just to our global economy, but to our national security. And so these represent what's called a critical technology area that we have an incredible strength in this region, because we have assets like NBAF, the National Bio and Agro Defense Facility in Manhattan, K-State's Biosecurity Research Institute. These are the folks who work every day to understand diseases that impact our livestock and learn how to prevent them. And they use biologic medicines to do that. So, as we think about, growing our Kansas economy and making sure that we produce things in this region that are, nationally important and globally important, we received an opportunity to apply for a major federal grant last year called the Tech Hubs grant. This was created by the federal government to encourage investment in critical technology areas like the ones we're talking about today, primarily because our geopolitical rivals have outstripped our investments in these spaces. And so especially countries like China and the CCP have invested heavily in developing biologics. And so to regain American leadership, they created this program to encourage innovation and investment, especially in places outside of the coast across the country. They asked for proposals to create a globally leading innovation ecosystem in critical technology areas within 10 years. And we submitted one from this region centered around biologic medicines. We were one of 350 regions to apply, and we were one of just 30 selected for our capabilities and our plan to grow. And so we have been working since that time to apply for federal funding to support this work. We believe that we will be among the most competitive applications this next year, and out of that effort, we'll gain the ability to bring up to $150 million of federal funding back to the state to support this work. Last year, when we applied, one of the pieces of feedback that we were given as to why our proposal wasn't selected is that they really wanted to see evidence that the states of Kansas and Missouri supported and were invested in the work that we proposed. And so that's why we're here today requesting a $2 million budget allocation to help us support this application and to help us leverage this federal funding and bring it back to the region. When we looked at the other cities that were successful in winning funding in that first round, every single one of them had a state funding match that provided evidence that the state was behind their activities. And those ranged from $1.3 million in Montana to $180 million in the state of Illinois. So you can see we're trying to ask for a modest amount that we think would reflect the state's support, but would minimize the burden to Kansas taxpayers. So I'll end there, but I'm happy to take any questions if that's appropriate.
Committee questions for Melissa Roberts. Yes, Representative Curtis.
Thank you, Vice Chair Williams. So thank you, Melissa, for being here, and of course, somewhat familiar with the work that you all do. Could you, I know that you said part of our application perhaps just lacking that commitment from the two states. Can you speak to, has Missouri also, have they committed some state support as well for this grant?
They have. So the state of Missouri last year committed to a $1 million budget appropriation, and we're going through the process the same way in the state of Missouri this year, trying to make a similar ask for $2 million on the other side of the state line. And so, we're not here because Missouri is trying to leverage something back and forth. We're really here because it's important that we demonstrate, the strong support from both of these states to be competitive.
Yes, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess my other question too, I know that we talk often about how we are part of the animal health corridor and how important this work is, and how important it is to do it here because we have so many of those elements here that we can have that hands-on experience and we have that hands-on expertise. Can you talk a little bit about how this work then helps with that animal health corridor that we are also very proud of and invest in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we often talk about the animal health corridor in this region, something that we're very proud of, rightfully. And the way that manifests in this world is that we already produce a third of the biologic medicines that are used in animal health applications in this region today. So we're already a leader in this space. And so to continue to build on that and to build on the foundation of animal health work that we have and also add human health support to it would represent a great opportunity to grow our regional economy and really to serve our country's needs. And I think when you start to say things like animals and humans, it sounds a little strange. And part of the root of why these things go together is because many of the infectious diseases that are emerging around the world that they study at places like MBAF and K-State, they're called zoonotic diseases. And that means that they evolve by moving between animal and human populations. And so many of you, if you went to the grocery store, for instance, in the last couple of weeks, you might have seen your egg case empty. Well, that's the result of a zoonotic disease, the avian flu, which has been impacting our egg supply in the United States. And eggs, of course, are delicious, and I enjoy them for breakfast, but they're also used to produce medicines for humans. Of course, avian flu, as y'all know, has the opportunity or the ability to also move to human populations. And so an avian flu outbreak is kind of a scary prospect. Well, biologic medicines are used to treat avian flu and to prevent its spread. And so that's exactly the kind of work that's important in integrating our animal health assets with human health needs, making sure that we're protecting not just our national feed stocks, but also public health.
Okay, well, I'm going to close this with a couple quick questions here. So it looks like you were awarded the $500,000. Is that the extent of your budget, or does the consortium also contribute to your financing and your overall budget?
So the consortium members have pledged another $500,000 of support, similar to the amount that we were able to win from the federal government, and we've secured that $1 million appropriation from Missouri. That kind of represents the budget of the BioHub right now. And so expanding this will allow us to be able to develop some new workforce programs to make sure that folks have opportunities for employment in this space, and to work with all of our consortium partners and continue to expand that across the state.
So currently you have approximately $2 million at your disposal to do the work. And where are you located? In the KCK area?
We're located in Kansas City, yes.
Kansas.
And our members are all across the corridor.
Kansas or Missouri?
We're located, BioNexus is located in Missouri.
Okay, so just an interesting, it's located in Missouri. Missouri has provided $1 million, and you want $2 million from Kansas?
And we're also advancing a similar ask in the state of Missouri, yes. Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Melissa, and please keep us posted on your efforts with Missouri and their contributions and how things are progressing. We would really like to stay in touch with you on that. One last question, Representative Helgerson, for a small question.
Don't even have to answer now, but it would be interesting to know how you're organized. Are you not-for-profit? Are you, et cetera? For this $2 million, do we get ownership? Is there a stake? What's the return on investment? How is your corporation set up, or is it a corporation? All of those kind of details should be provided to us.
Yes.
Representative?
Happy to follow.
That was not a small question, but actually those are great questions. And if you could provide some of those answers, if you could provide it back to Research Department, Dylan, and then he could distribute it to our committee, and we could review that. That would be important.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you so much.
All right, committee, we're going to go ahead and move forward with our budget reports. We first will have Chairperson Anderson from Transportation. Everyone, if you will take out your Kansas 911 Coordinating Council, turning it over to you, Representative.
Thank you, Chair. We will start with the State 911 Board. Starting with fiscal year 2025, the Kansas 911 Act established the Kansas 911 Coordinating Council to monitor delivery of 911 services across the state. 2024 HB 2690 amends the act to abolish the council on July 1, 2025, and replaces it with the State 911 Board as a state agency. As a result, the agency does not estimate any expenditures in FY25. The LBC concurs with the agency's revised estimate in 25, and the Budget Committee concurred with the LBC's recommendation. Madam Chair, I'll stand for questions on 25 that does not exist.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Moving on to fiscal year 2026, the agency requests $41.1 million in expenditures and 14 FTE positions for FY26, including $15.5 million for agency operations and $25.6 million for state aid to Kansas Public Safety answering points. The agency budget is comparable to the Kansas 911 Coordinating Council's budget for 2024, with some exceptions. The addition of an executive director, independent contractors becoming employees, additional staff positions to handle administrative and fee-related functions, and interagency costs related to IT and other services. The LBC concurs with the agency's revised estimate for FY26. The Budget Committee concurred with the LBC's recommendation for 26 with one adjustment. We added $2 million SGF to administer grants to develop interior and exterior geographic information system data for critical infrastructure for FY 2026. Grants would be prioritized based on facility type, with public and private elementary and secondary schools receiving the highest priority. This would be a one-time expenditure for 26. And I'll just make a note. We had them come in, this group come in and testify in our committee. It's a phenomenal deal that they use overseas, essentially in the military, but they graph schools, hospitals, state buildings, and it's anytime that there's active shooter or emergency that they need to get law enforcement to a specific spot in a building, they can do it extremely quickly. Our committee felt like it could add an extra layer of safety to our education here in Kansas, and so we added $2 million. Madam Chair, I'll stand for questions on 26.
All right. Are there questions? There are questions. Representative Sutton and then Representative Hoy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not frowning on the ad at all, but I am curious if you discussed that technology. I've heard a lot of technology that's out there is pretty good on a one-level building. That works fantastic. But when you get into multi-levels, things get a little bit more challenging. Is this one of them that's trying to improve that, or is this one that's failing?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, it's across the board. There has been struggles with that in the past, but they are working on how to make it effective at multiple levels. Right now, I think it's up to 3 levels.
On 3?
I believe.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Hoy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just point out we did have some discussion on the $2 million SGF that's added to this otherwise fee funded board, and the $2 million is only enough to cover about 1/3 of the schools in Kansas. So a motion did fail to up that to $6 million so that all schools would have access to this. Ultimately, I did not support the $2 million. I'm also struggling with putting out an RFP and going under a new contract when there's still some outstanding contracts, existing contracts that have not been funded. But overall, I'm still going to support the budget because we got to keep this moving and get the state 911 board is very important. And I do think GIS mapping for our schools does help our emergency services personnel in the events of emergencies. I just wish that all children would have that protection. Thank you.
Representative Hoffman and then Representative Helgerson and then Representative Howe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I sat on the 911 board, and this is probably something we're going to see for probably several years. This is kind of the start of, if we can start getting the schools mapped out, then we can start doing other buildings, and it'll kind of grow. Hopefully we can find some other monies to help us do this. But this is kind of the next step. And to go back to the fine representative from Gardner, his question on the Z axis, I guess it'd be, yeah. The data is there, and when they map these out, that data will be there for those, even if it's a 16-story building. There is still some standards that have to be put together to make sure that if it says that you are at 1,500 feet or whatever, we may not necessarily know what that is at this point. You know, are you on the 16th floor or are you on the 12th floor on this building? So that's the reason why this is kind of being tried to, at this point, being kept to just a single or one or two-story building, because that's pretty easy to find. But as these are mapped out, that data is being collected, and as the technology continues to get better, it'll just automatically collect that data and will work, and we won't have, hopefully, we won't have to go back and remap out the building. It's already done. So we started with the schools, but I think the overall plan would be, if possible, over many years to maybe get every public building that's in the state done, so that our first responders do know where exactly where a shooter might be, or where a disturbance might be, or just somebody having a heart attack on the phone, you know, where they're at. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Hoffman. And it looks like the one-time expenditure for fiscal year 2026 that's in the write-up may not be a one-time expenditure. So I'd like you to, you don't have to comment at this moment, but before you close, perhaps expand on that, clarify, change that, or keep it intact based on the information that we're hearing and what your intent is with that. We're moving on now to Representative Helgerson.
Did the subcommittee look within the budget to see if there's any other savings that they can use part of those savings to fill the $2 million?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In this agency? No, this is a brand-new agency created this year.
But within the budget?
No, the committee decided to go SGF.
Okay, thank you. You know, I woke up this morning with a whole different feeling. I don't have to be responsible anymore. I'm not at the big table. For years, I've been talking about how we are getting ourselves financially in the hole. And I think right now we're $400 million, and we can't control ourselves. $2 million may be a great idea, but it's just that it's the camel's nose under the tent. And, you know, I don't know about you, but I got a half a dozen emails about, oh, the subcommittee on whatever it was did the following things, and you need to put more money in. Yeah, I think we do need to put more money in many of the projects. But somebody better say where we're coming up with the money. If it's coming from tax reductions, fine. One or two of you sit in the tax committee and know we're getting a whole list of agency or organizations saying we need a tax exemption for the following because we'll provide more economic development. You know, I think $2 million is great, but then we better put our thinking caps on and say, where do we find it within the existing budget? And I'm going to get pretty adamant about this, even if I'm not in the top seats anymore. You spend the money, you don't have it, you put ourselves in the financial hole. And we're breaking the budget. So I'll make a motion to pull the $2 million out.
There has been a motion and second, and now we'll open for further discussion. As we discuss this, I'm going to make a comment on that, and we've had some good short conversations, Representative Helgerson. But I want you to know that the chair and myself have been going over or hashing all kinds of additional ideas. So I would give you hope that there are things that potentially are in the works that we're considering and bringing to leadership. So I wouldn't want anyone to necessarily nix a good idea if there perhaps is also a larger picture that we're still working through. So I just wanted to put that out there as a little temptation for you, or a little morsel of hope. All right, opening up for discussion. Comments from the committee. Representative Howell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll reserve my questions because I know I was on the list, but I don't know enough about this yet to really make an informed decision, but I do trust the chair in coming up with some ideas when we come back to work the entire budget. So thank you.
That is the hope. Yes, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick note on the motion. I think if this, I know my committee was able to see the demonstration and the PowerPoint. I think if this whole committee could see it, this is a life-saving feature that we can add to right now schools. But like Representative Hoffman said, at some point, maybe all public buildings across the state. I think if everybody in this committee was able to see it, I think we would be on board.
And I would just also know that the technology's out there. I'm going to use a different example of technology where there's sex trafficking of children. And because of photographs taken inside hotel rooms and then uploaded on sites, not reputable sites across the internet, where 40% of our sites are filled with pornography, they're able to see the stamp of the location of those pictures and those videos, and they're able to go in and save lives, save children's lives. The technology is growing. And so that's why it's incredibly interesting to think about, taking advantage of this technology at this point in time and mapping and then moving forward. I think that's a potentially substantial benefit to our children in that area. So just something to think about. Any other questions? Yes, we have Representative Ballard and then Representative Turk.
I will comment on it, because we have, like, say, 988 in Lawrence, and that's very different. But one of the things that we've been talking about is there are so many places in Kansas that do not have access to 911. They just don't. They're too far out. They don't have the watchtowers. They don't have a combination of things. The comment I guess I would have, if you should pull the money, then what does that do to the plans that are already in the works?
Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we pulled this funding, yes, for the motion, well, there's technically nothing in the works yet in Kansas. They're just coming to the state. This was in addition to the 911 board.
This is just SGF. So it's, yes, adding SGF and for this particular program.
Okay.
All right. Representative Turk and then Representative Hoy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm trying to come up with words that aren't going to trigger everybody on this board, but I love that we go to war over $2 million after passing out a higher ed budget with $80 million in fluff money that just came out of nowhere. Like what? And we're sitting here and we're going to debate over $2 million for a project that would move our emergency services into the future. I mean, it just screams to me that nobody here understands the true value of this. I'm telling you, as somebody who's worked in the field in law enforcement, if you know where you're going before you're going, that changes the whole ball game. And you're telling me we got the technology at our fingertips and we're tiptoeing around a $2 million bill when we pass out hundreds of millions and money that we don't know where it's going or how in a previous budget? That just ticks me off. And I'm trying to figure out what language to use to start this back up. But I'm just, where we are in future budgets in government is to create efficiencies. We want to shave the overall budget. We want to shrink the overall budget. We all here agree. Well, technology does that for us, folks. Technology. And we're going to debate where this money comes from. I don't care where it comes from. I would say pull $2 million from the $80 million proposed yesterday in the KU budget and put it here. Save a life. Instead of predicting, hopefully we can teach somebody to be clairvoyant and out of KU, and maybe they can do it some magical, mystical way. No, technology is here. Let's help our law enforcement. Let's really help our law enforcement and do something that they can apply to their everyday, to their toolkit. Consider that, and I'll be thinking about how to bury this motion.
Thank you, Representative. His engines are revved. Let's go to Representative Hoy and then back to Representative Howe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of clarifying points. This $2 million is not limited to just schools. It includes hospitals, state government buildings. So we're not necessarily just starting with schools. The $2 million would cover 1/3 of schools if it were to go only to schools, but it is first come, first serve for all those other organizations and agencies. And it is specific to GIS mapping and grid mapping, so I don't believe it has any technologies as far as locating predators and things like that. It's very specific grid mapping. So if you were to go into a school or government building, they have lots of different numbering systems. They're not structured the same across the state. So if there were an active shooter, it would be like go to F3, and it's more of a mapping issue. And the presenter to our committee did mention about the Uvalde shooting, and of course that one involved an 18-year-old shooter with an AR-15 style rifle, and it was very, I would say it was very compelling testimony in regards to the fact that we were comparing our schools here in the United States to a war zone overseas. That was the example we were given. So, I do take this very seriously, but as far as comparing it also to fluff money, I would also note that this was not an enhancement request from the agency. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I think we do understand on the mapping part of it that it is GIS, but anything that we do to map actually does help law enforcement and those that are working in security details and services to locate and know where they can be. So I think we do understand that. I'm going to jump out of order just slightly to let the chair back in, and then we'll keep continuing on. I have all your names. Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one correction on that last comment. It's not first come, first serve. So it is. Yes, other public agencies can apply for it, but it is a priority to elementary schools, K through 12 first. And we think in this first $2 million, there will be enough applications with the priority being schools. This should all go to fund schools across the state.
All right, thank you for that clarification. And then I believe next we have Representative Howe. Is that correct?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question for the Chair, Anderson. Can you tell me again who did the presentation before your committee? It wasn't clear to me.
Representative Anderson.
Yeah, I apologize. I don't have the name directly in front of me. Sorry, that's on another piece of paper. I would like to say this is an RFP, so this isn't a carve out for one group.
Oh, okay, but you had mentioned international, something about international, but is it a company that did the presentation? Are they a Kansas-based company that has the technology, or?
Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a former Marine who created this, and there's other groups out there like it, but these guys are in 17 states. It is the Critical Response Group is the name, but they're in 17 states. They've been extremely effective, and like I said, it's an RFP, but that is who we heard from.
All right, any further questions, Representative Howe? One more?
Yeah, I'm going to support my chair on his budget recommendation today. However, I just wanted to make note that there is effort by the state of Kansas, and there's been an agreement signed by the Department of Commerce, and a company from California that's relocating to my area of the state that does exactly what this proposes to do. And so I worry about if there's an RFP, then anybody can compete for it. So I'm good with that. But I think we have to look at the whole picture of exactly how we're using state dollars when we work the budget, because the state's already made commitments financially with incentives to this company. And I would like to see perhaps how those assets could be utilized in a bigger picture as we work the budget.
Thank you for sharing that, Representative. And if you would connect with us later on that information, making sure we're not overlooking anything. And also for the committee's benefit, Dylan is keeping track of any increases that we do recommend right now. And then when we put that budget together, there is an opportunity perhaps to take another look at these. So I wanted to give you that little bit of ease of mind. Representative Getz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to, my mind kind of went out a couple years from now and, God forbid we have a school shooting and we think back on this moment and it was something we could have done that would have further protected our schools and helped our law enforcement respond to these situations. And we backed away and we didn't find a way to do this, which I agree with the representative on the budgetary comments, but I really appreciate them. So I think we have to have priorities, and I think a priority of safety and security would be a great one to start with. And I want that for our students. I want that for my student in his school and all of your students in your school. So thank you, Madam Chair.
And finally, we have Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've had time to calm down a little bit, perhaps. I want to commend the committee. Whether this is will ultimately pass or not remains to be seen. I'll be supporting it, of course. But I want to commend the committee on actually thinking about solutions. So often when we have some of these tragedies that go on across America, and of course schools are the most impactful. I get that. But so often we wring our hands, we spout a lot of rhetoric, and we fundraise, but we don't actually go about reducing the body count. And I fully commend the committee for looking at ways that we can actually achieve the goals that we all say we want to achieve, and that is to protect our kids or any citizens. If this is hospitals, that works too. I mean, let's protect people, and this is a step. It's a step that I respect the thought behind it, and I will absolutely be voting against the amendment being proposed that would defund this measure. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Hold on. Are there any other discussion items before Representative Hoyt closes on her amendment?
No, it's
Helgerson's amendment. Okay, then Representative Hoyt and then Helgerson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to make a substitute motion. Again, I'm not struggling with this mapping. I'm struggling with how pilot projects tend to leave out underserved communities. And I believe that all kids deserve this level of safety. I am not comfortable doing it just for some. So I'd like to make a substitute motion to increase it to $6 million and limit it to elementary, secondary, and post-secondary schools.
Apologies. Would you please repeat that?
I make a substitute motion to increase the SGF to $6 million and limit it for elementary, secondary, and post-secondary schools.
Is there a second on the substitute amendment?
I will second it, yeah.
Second by Representative Ballard and Representative Ballard for further discussion.
Are you leaving out hospitals and all those others when you specifically stated the schools?
I'm leaving them out, so this would now be a pilot project that is offered to all schools, and then we can add in the rest of the government buildings and hospitals after we fully implement this GIS tracking for 911 services for our schools.
Representative Ballard?
All right, I second it so that we could discuss it as well. 9/11 is extremely important to me and also to a council that I'm on in Lawrence. And so we have to be really careful about that. But it's rural Kansas that really has a bigger problem than urban does. So I think we have to really look at that in terms of what the needs are. I'll just stop at that and have people discuss it. But I thought at least we need to discuss that.
We do have Representative Tarwater and Estes in line, but I'll go ahead and let the chair, Anderson, respond, and then we'll go back to our lineup.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll just touch on the one-time expenditure right now, since we're on this motion. I think the intent over time is to get it to 6 million, which should cover the entire K-12 across the state. We kind of wanted to start at 2 million. I don't know if I want to call it a pilot program, but to test it and come back next year and after it's implemented and see how it's working. We had this same motion in our budget subcommittee. The subcommittee decided that we should take it one step at a time. It's a step in the right direction, but sort of try it as a pilot, do the 2 million, get 1/3 of the schools, and then come back next year and maybe do another 2 million, and kind of a 3-year process. That's why we did the one time, so we can come back. But we did have this exact amendment in committee, and it failed.
Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to commend Representative Turk on his speech, because he took somebody that made a second on a motion to remove $2 million and changed her mind to making it $6 million. So good job, buddy. And I would like to point out, I believe the schools are getting another $290 million this year. And it's ridiculous that we have to tell them that this is an important thing to spend their money on, because they would never do this out of that $290 million increase that they're going to get. They would never do that on their own. I think this whole conversation is ridiculous. They should do this. But I'll stick with the chair on this one. Thank you.
All right, Representative Estes.
I see a danger in not going ahead and doing what we can afford to do rather than waiting and do everything we want to do later. Let's at least get what we can do and going.
The good over the perfect. Representative Helgerson.
Might be the last chance I get to make these comments, so I'm going to do it. Dylan, didn't we hear this last year? Or a similar proposal from someone else? Was it
that was firearm detection? And that was also an RFP, and it was vetoed by the governor. That was the unconstitutional veto of the governor. I think the AG just ruled on that it was an unlawful line item veto.
I just led that into you for you. Let me make a correction. If you've noticed down here, I've been voting against higher ed budget and several of the others because they have been out of whack. We've been putting in $40 million of additional, and no one is speaking up to the extent that it's necessary. I'm in favor of this. But I asked the question of the chairman, have you looked at any other ideas? Well, how much do we have in bond issues that the schools are coming in front of us this year asking for, I think, state approval to do their regular bonding? Why don't we require them to put it in the bonding for the schools, the new schools that they're starting to do, and do that? Then we don't have to spend the extra $2 million, then it's built into the bond issue. My objection to this is we automatically say when somebody comes to us, that's a good idea. We can save lives. We can save some services. Let's put more new money in. Dylan, how much are we over in 25 and 26? You gave me those figures.
Dylan, he's going to look.
Am I right? It's 43 million in 25 and 26 million in 26? Is that how I read the chart?
Yeah, we're going to give him just a minute. Now, Kansas,
Okay.
State of Kansas.
I'll make this a final point. I heard the vice chair make the comment that the chairman and her are looking at ideas that might have some validity, and maybe we'll put them in later on. Or maybe we'll take them out later on. My point is, it's just as easy for us to start writing down the ideas and say, this 2 million, that's worth it if we can come up with the money in other areas. As opposed to saying, now that we've built a budget that's 50 or 60 million dollars over, how do we figure out what to keep and what not to keep? The process is the legislature has made decisions that they want to have tax relief this year. We have been instructed by the speaker to put a controlled budget together. And we have already violated that, not this program, but several programs. I think there's probably this program is worthwhile and we should move ahead. But I don't think we automatically put in $2 million because that's the easy way of doing it. And I'll tell you right now, after listening to some of the other subcommittees that have been meeting, you're going to have a whole heck of a lot of other pressure to put on you for nursing homes or developmental disabled individuals or whatever. I'm just arguing for fiscal conservative values right now. And if you think it's a worthwhile program, put it down and say, let's come back to this and let's do something radical. And that is, let's try to find money in the budget to fund this as opposed to putting in new money.
Well, thank you, Representative Helgerson, for this sermon. We do appreciate it, and we can't disagree with it. So we are building the budgets as we go, and so you have to make that decision each. Is this a valuable expenditure or not? Obviously, in the context of that $400 million hole. However, with the chairman's consent and approval, which I believe he has already provided, we are tracking and we can provide that ongoing list of SGF expenditures that are increasing those enhancements, and I do think we should review them. And I do understand your point that it's easier to put them off to the side, perhaps, and then vote on them separately. However, that's not the way the chair has put this together at this moment. That's not the process, but I do appreciate your suggestions. He's laughing. All right. All right, Dylan, go ahead and give us your numbers.
Madam Chair, the Representative Helgerson is correct. There's about $40 million in SGF ads so far. If you look at the profile, in FY25, based upon the LBC recommendations, before we began adjusting them, it's about $900 million receipts below expenditures, and in 26, it's about $478.6 million receipts below expenditures.
All right, thank you for that. And with the chair's approval, if you will get with the chair, I would love for that total to be provided to our committee on a weekly basis via email with that list, maybe that Excel list, and so we can monitor how it is growing. I think that is important for us to be in front of our eyes at all times. So that's step one. Thank you for inspiring us, Representative Helgerson. Did I miss anyone else on this substitute motion? Substitute motion, Representative Hoyle, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would state that while I agreed with many of the comments, it did not change my mind. I believe that if we're going to have GIS grid mapping, that it should be standardized across the state. When there are mass casualty events, multiple agencies respond to those. The more prepared and the more standardized it is, the better those agencies are able to collaborate and work together. So I'm very hung up on not providing this and truly adopting this and standardizing it, because I do think it's valuable. So anyway, with that, I close and move the amendment.
All right, committee, all those in favor of the Hoy $6 million amendment, say aye. Aye. And those opposed, nay? No. The nays appear to have it. The nays do have it, and the motion fails. We're back on the base budget. Okay, thank you for that. I thought that that motion was dead because it was substituted out, but we are back on the original motion. All right, any further discussion, or have we exhausted the discussion? Would you like to restate your motion, Representative Helgerson? All right, committee, the motion was to remove the $2 million. And if there's no further discussion, we will go ahead and vote on that. All those in favor of the Helgerson amendment that would remove the $2 million proviso, say aye. And those opposed, nay. Nay. The nays have it. The motion fails. Now we are back on the base bill. Do we have a motion for this proviso for the, actually, no, it's actually the recommendation. All right. If there are no further discussion, then Chair Anderson, you may pass it out.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee recommendations for the State 911 Board budget for fiscal years 25 and 26.
All right. Second by Hoffman. And all those in favor say aye. Aye. And those opposed, nay. All right. Motion carries. And Helgerson would like to be written down as a no vote. And we will move on. The motion carries, it passes, and we'll move on from the State 911 Board. And thank you for a very robust discussion. Next, we have the State Fire Marshal, and back to Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Moving on to the State Fire Marshal. Starting with fiscal year 2025, the agency requests a revised estimate of $9.9 million, all federal and special revenue funds. The revised request is an all funds decrease of $19,061 below the amount approved in 24. The agency request includes a supplemental request for an economic impact contractor for $60,000, all from the Fire Marshal fee fund. The increase is offset by a decrease of $77,172 for a boiler inspector employee. The agency's revised estimate includes 72 FTE positions, which is an increase of 3.5 FTE positions from the amount approved by the 24 legislature. The position increase includes an addition of 2 FTE positions in hazardous materials, 1 FTE position in the fire prevention program, and 0.5 FTE positions in the search and rescue program, 0.5 positions in administration, and 0.5 for a general investigation program, which is partially offset by a reduction of 1 FTE position in the boiler inspection program. The LBC concurs with the agency's revised estimate in 2025 with the following adjustments. The LBC deleted $60,000 from the Fire Marshal fee fund for an economic impact contractor in 25 and deleted 3.5 FTE positions in FY25. The Budget Committee concurred with the LBC's recommendation. Madam Chair, I'll stand for questions in FY25.
All right, committee, any questions for Chair Anderson? No question. Yes, Representative Sutton.
Oh, I can't pass this one up. Thank you, Madam Chair. So we asked the agencies to tell us if their changes in regulations were ever going to impact the budgets. And the State Fire Marshal decides they need to hire somebody to do that. Was there just, obviously this got smacked down, and I appreciate the effort because it's silly. But was there discussion? Did someone try to defend that?
Chair Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would say yes, but the committee decided to move forward anyway.
Thank you for that. I'm just curious as to how that defense looked.
We decided to go with the LBC's recommendation after a robust discussion in our subcommittee.
It did warrant a robust discussion, did it?
It partly offline, but yes.
All right. Then I'd like to continue this one offline, perhaps. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam Chair, and Mr. Chair, and everybody in the chair right now.
Sorry about that. I had to do a podcast with the Speaker Pro Tem. Any further discussions? I believe we're on the budget for the State Fire Marshal on 2025. Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, I wanted to come to the fire marshal's defense on this because I've had a lot of experiences with him, especially with the elevator situation from a few years ago. He is a very pro-business minded person, and he really does look out for the impact that regulations would have on businesses. So I would imagine that that's kind of the route he was going. But I appreciate the debate, but things are a lot different at the fire marshal's office than they used to be. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Chairman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll just say, these positions are still funded, so they were removed by the LBC as FTEs, but they were going off budget to on budget, and so it was, the positions are still funded.
All right, any further discussion for 2025? All right, seeing none, Chairman Anderson, you may move on to 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving on to FY 2026, the agency requests $11.1 million all special revenue funds for FY 2026. This is an all funds increase of $1.2 million above the FY 25 approved amount. The increase is largely due to an enhancement request of $401,547 for a salary progression plan for special agents in the investigations division and $785,439 in expenditures for incident response support, investigations, and training. The increase is partially offset by a reduction of $80,342 for a boiler inspection position. The agency's request includes 72 FTE positions, which is an increase of 3.5 positions above the FY 25 approved amount. The LBC concurs with the agency's revised estimate for 26 with the following adjustments. The LBC deleted $401,547, all from the Fire Marshal Fee Fund for salary progression plan in the investigators division. Deleted $60,000 off from the Fire Marshal Fee Fund for an economic impact contractor, and deleted 3.5 FTE positions for additional positions for the rearrangements in FY 26, kind of like what we spoke about in 25. The Budget Committee concurred with LBC's recommendation in 26. Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for questions.
All right, committee, any questions in regards to fiscal year 2026? Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, was there a discussion on the volunteer fire departments and the grants that the fire marshal was giving to them for much needed equipment?
Chairman Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, these grants are important. That's coming out of their fund each year. They will need to come before us at some point for more funding. I spoke with the fire marshal this morning. Maybe not this year, but at some point. It is a good program, these grants for the volunteer firefighters across the entire state. But we didn't do it this year, but at some point we will need to add in.
Representative Tarwater.
So are they able to continue the program this year, or are they going to pause it because of the lack of funds?
Chairman
It's my understanding they've spent down some excess funds that they had, and they used it wisely for the volunteer firefighters' equipment. I just don't want to be in a situation where we're like California and not prepared. I mean, we're not donating fire trucks to another country, but
Chairman Anderson.
You know, I just want to make sure we're prepared, and these people are volunteers, and they do need the equipment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we did look at their fee fund. I don't think it's being paused this year, at least that's my understanding. But next year we should have a conversation about this and potentially add in some extra funding for this.
Well, and if I could interject as well, you know, I served as a member of the governor's wildfire task force, and we had a very robust discussion in regards to our volunteer firefighter departments across the state, because the majority of our firefighting is by volunteers. And there's a lot of issues that we have to address in regards to, you know, recruitment, you know, payment, whatever the case may be. We were supposed to have the recommendations from the Wildfire Task Force released, and I think we've had who the chair of the Wildfire Task Force, Secretary Mike Beam, in here a couple years ago to talk about what we discussed. But we've never had a formal recommendation. And I know the previous state fire marshal served on that committee as well. And that's something that we probably will need to have a discussion on, exactly what the recommendation is from the Wildfire Task Force, what was discussed in regards to our volunteer firefighting departments and how we can help those, as Representative Tarwater had mentioned. He also mentioned, I think he was just using it as an example in regards to what is happening in Southern California right now. But that could, very well happen to us, one, if they're not funded, and two, if we don't address some concerns across the state, especially things that I've seen in my area of the state where, we're not, or some landowners are not actively taking care of the overgrown of cedar trees, that could actually be a problem if we were to have another 4-county fire, and that's an issue. So that'd be more something for Chairman Rogers or maybe Chairperson Mosier to address in regards to what we need to do and enhance those that own land to cut down or get rid of those cedar trees, because that could be a fire hazard. Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's one less boiler inspector, so how many do we have? And with the loss of this one, how long has that been? And are we behind? I know it's been a challenge for folks west of here to get an inspector to take that in a timely manner. What's the status there?
Chairman Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman. I was told they have 5, and there is no backlog.
Very good. It's not a problem. I don't mind saving $80,000 so to make sure that we're not all staying in the eastern side of the state. Thank you.
Chairperson Mosier, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not a motion, but just a comment on Representative Tarwater's comment. I currently have 2 local volunteer fire departments in my district that are broke because they spent all their funds last April and May fighting the fires on the Blue River there at Blue Rapids. And so I'm trying to work with them to find some money to reimburse. And so I think that's pretty important to keep that program in for our volunteer firefighters across the state. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion in regards to 2026? All right, seeing none, Chairman Anderson, I would entertain a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee recommendations for the State Fire Marshal budgets 25 and 26.
All right, your committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Hoy. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, thank you, Chairman Anderson. Now we'll move over to Chairperson Wassinger with the General Government Budget Committee, and I believe that you'll be starting with the Office of Information Technology Services. Chairperson Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Office of Information Technology Services, otherwise known as OITS, requests a revised estimate of $22.9 million, including $15.2 million SGF for on-budget expenditures for 25. It's an increase of $2.7 million or 13.1 above the amount.
Sorry.
Am I doing that
I
one?
thought you were on 26. I apologize.
Okay, I'm in the right place. All right. Where was I? It's attributable to a planned ARPA project for FY 2025 of $1.9 million and reappropriation of SGF dollars for a vendor-delayed system upgrade that had to be paid for in 2025. It also includes a $63 million off-budget expenditures, an increase of $1.5 million or 2.5% above the amount approved by the 2024 legislature. The increase is attributed to converting 3 FTEs from an on-budget status to an off-budget status. The off-budget status is all the agencies that are contracting with information services to have them work for them, as we did in SB 291. The agency total revised estimate is $85.9 million for 2025, and it's an increase of $4.2 million or 5.1% above the amount approved by the 2024 legislature. The LBC deleted 3 off-budget FT positions in FY '25. The Budget Committee concurred with the LBC's recommendation in 2025. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll stand for questions.
Committee, any questions? Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't disagree with what the Legislative Budget Committee did, or your committee, but I am curious as to what the explanation was for moving 3 from on budget to off, and then adding 3, which I'm assuming were on budget, or maybe they were off. I don't know. What was there discussion as to what kind of a shell game we were playing over here?
Chairperson Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was 3 FTEs from on budget, and they needed more over on off budget, which is paid by the fees that they collect.
Right.
But they wanted 3 more for information services, and LBC removed those.
Okay. If I could continue.
Representative Sutton.
Those additional 3, were those on budget or off budget?
The additional 3 were on.
Okay, so you said it wasn't a shell game.
I can
follow
on
the P on
paper,
this one.
on paper, 3 people move over here, and they want to add the 3 people that they took out of their budget.
Gotcha. Clear as mud. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions in regards to fiscal year 2025? All right, seeing none, Chairperson Wassinger, you may move on to fiscal year 2026.
Thank you. The FY 2026 budget requests $3.19 million, including $29.5 SGF for on-budget expenses for '26. Of that, $15 million SGF was appropriated in 2024 House Sub 291, which consolidated executive branch security professionals and implemented other cybersecurity provisions. The increase is 11.7 or 57.8 above the amount approved by the '24 legislature. It's attributable to 2020, the Senate Bill 291, and is partially offset by the anticipated completion of the agency IT project paid for with ARPA funds and additional ARPA expenditures of 1.9 and 3.1 million. The agency's revised estimates also includes $66.2 million in off-budget expenses, an increase of $4.8 million above what was approved. The increase is attributed to higher costs for software expenses, $1.7 million, data center solution, $1.2 million, network monitoring, $679,000, and the FTE changes that were requested in 2025 of $1.2 million. The Special Committee on Legislative Budget deleted 3.0 off-budget FTEs. The House Committee added those 3 off-budget FTE positions for 2026 and add $2.2 million, all from SGF, to the agency for the IT emergency account for 2026. I'll stand for questions for 2026.
All right, thank you, Chairperson Wassinger. So I see that the only item that the governor had as far as a recommendation was the $2 million for the agency IT emergency fund.
Yes.
But she did not add the 3 off-budget FTE positions. Was there any discussion as to why the governor did not offer those, but the budget committee did?
Well, she was more, thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to speak for the governor, but it's off budget. So they needed the people to continue the off-budget services that they're doing to other agencies and getting the money back from.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Chairperson Wassinger in regards to fiscal year 2026? All right, seeing none, Chairperson Wassinger, I would entertain a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the General Budget Committee recs for the information services for the years 2025 and 2026 as presented.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion, is there a second? Seconded by Representative Turk. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed? The ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it, motion passes. All right, Chairperson Wassinger.
We move on to the Board of Barbering. There's a lot more to explain in this budget. The Board of Barbering has been limited in how much money they could spend out of their fee fund, and they had quite a bit in their fee fund. And so The LBC concurred with the agency's revised estimate, and they deleted $5,200 from the barbering fee fund for barbering exam costs, deleted $15,000 for travel costs, $500 for national conference fees, and $500 for payroll, and $1,000 all from the barbering fee for new tires and maintenance on cars, not just new tires. They just use it one line, and it's maintenance on tires as well as other things that they need to keep a vehicle going. The Budget Committee concurred with LBC with the following adjustments, just added everything back up, and then add $75,055 from the Board of Barbering Fee Fund to increase the fund's expenditure limitation to 90% of available fundings in 2025. The fund is estimated to have $324,634 available in FY25. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll stand for questions.
All right, so let's go back to these tires.
Okay. It's not just tires.
So when we're, referencing the governor's recommendation, basically what she had included in her budget was everything that your budget committee had included as well. So the tires, that is, which it says in the explainer that it's a 2023 Chevy Equinox with approximately 35,000 miles on it. So this is maintenance, all maintenance in regards to that vehicle, not just new tires.
Yes, it's all maintenance on the vehicle.
How many miles do they put on that a year?
That's a good question. Did they give us how many miles?
I don't have the specifics.
We don't have that, but we can get that for you.
Okay, well, I'm just wondering because in 2026,
They did the same thing.
oh, actually, no, I'm reading that wrong. It's fiscal year 2027 that the governor has an additional $1,000 for tires for the agency vehicle. So I thought I was reading that as 2026, and it was appearing that we were buying tires every single year, and I was wondering how much mileage
Yes,
we were putting on it.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. One thing I can tell you that the Board of Barbering is very frugal, and they're not trying to get a lot of money to do exciting things. There's a new two-member organization, and they're in 500 square feet. And they have been reusing, making sure that they're recycling paper clips, and they have a typewriter that has twist ties that she can use for templates. So I think this is a board that's been held down, and they need to be able to have some funding to make things work.
Right. I would say I would have preferred the language up to 1,000 instead of add 1,000, but that's just semantics. Representative Turk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just some clarification on the discussions for this particular budget hearing. I believe between the agency and their budget analyst, there was a significant amount of miscommunication. As you can see, they labeled their entire repair costs as tires. Of course, during their testimony, they explained that it's more than just tires. It could be anything. It's how they're budgeting out for the foreseeable future. So though it says tires, it is everything. And there might be other examples of that throughout this budget. They were also operating under the impression that they needed an enormous amount of money in their ending balance. I don't even think they were aware of their true ending balance until our meeting. So we made some adjustments that allowed them to have some more flexibility within their fee funds, considering their ending balance was growing. So that hopefully that explains some of the line items that you see in your report.
Vice Chair Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on that note, did your committee have further discussions? I noticed that this particular fee fund for the Board of Barbering, actually, they are all at their statutory limit. And I can't think of another fee fund where every single license is at its maximum. So based on Representative Turk's comments, are they going to reduce those fees since we're seeing a doubling of ending balances for their fee funds?
Chairperson Walsinger.
I'm trying to get, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. That is a conversation we can have with them and make sure that they do that. They were very amenable to anything that we asked for and they needed to do.
Vice Chair Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Amix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You had asked the question about the mileage on the car. They had an accident, I think, a little over a year ago. And during the discussion that we had in committee, they were talking about the new car has about 35,000 miles on it, I think it was. That's what I had written down. So that's 15 months worth of mileage.
Yeah, we could schedule that out, but I was just wondering how many miles per year they're putting on that since they're, if you look at 27, well, we'll discuss that in 27 because they're adding additional money for maintenance costs, which was alluded to that was in the $1,000, but then in 2027, there's additional amount, but we'll get to that in 2027. Any further discussion in regards to 2025? All right, seeing none, Chairperson Wassinger.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. FY 2026, the agency request $269,395, all from the Barbering fee fund for 2026. It was an increase of $41,914 for the Granicus website system, and they have since deleted that request. The House budget, LBC deleted $10,000 from the Board of Barbering for the Granicus website platform. We concurred with the LBC's recommendation for 2026 with the following adjustment, adding language once again to allow the agency to spend up to 90% of their total fund expenditures for FY26. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Committee, are there any questions in regards to 2026? Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually have a couple of questions. First off, with regard to the Granicus website system, why did they scrap that? Was there a reason for it? They have an alternative?
Chairperson Wassinger.
Because they feel like it's financially irresponsible, sorry.
Representative Sutton.
Okay, I'm good with that answer. I like it. But that kind of also opens the door to, it started rearing its head in last year's budget, but I have never seen travel costs and national conference fees being supplemental requests. These are normally items that are routine in a budget. So who is it that's limiting the expenditures by the Board of Barbering that they would have to make a supplemental request for routine business practices?
Well, Chairperson Wassinger, that was in 2025. We're on 2026,
Right.
but
obviously it's still continuing. So I'm curious.
Chairperson Wassinger.
What is that downward pressure?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That is between the agency and the Division of Budget.
Representative Sutton.
Okay, say that one. The Division of Budget, the
Division of Budget tells them what they can, it has been telling them what they can and can't do.
That's funny. I thought that was the Appropriations Committee.
I did too, but that's what we found out.
Interesting.
There was the Division of Budget feels that there was miscommunication.
Representative Sutton.
Hoping it gets better.
Okay, miscommunication. You care to color that one in a little bit?
No, I
Chairperson
prefer
Walsinger.
not to, Mr. Chair.
I think this could be a really fun rabbit hole.
It could be.
Interesting. If the budget, if the Division of Budget is usurping the will of the Appropriations Committee and the Board of Barbering, I wonder how many other agencies are involved in that. I think it's something that we definitely need to look into. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion in regards to 2026? All right, seeing none, Chairperson Wassinger, we move on to 2027.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, they want 1,000 for, it says new tires, but it's vehicle maintenance. And they put down that they wanted the Granicus website system. The LBC concurred with the agency request, but deleted 1,000 for the vehicle maintenance and deleted the 3,600 for continued work on the deleted website system for 27. The House Committee on General Government added 1,000 for the vehicle maintenance. We should, I'm going to make a comment that I don't think we meant to put the extra 1,000 in and give them the 5,000 for vehicle maintenance, and add language requiring the agency to submit a 5-year vehicle maintenance plan to the Division of Budget and the House Committee on General Government Budget and the House Committee on Appropriations. We also added language that the agency could spend up to 90% of their total available funds in 2027. With that, I'll stand for questions.
All right, thank you, Chairperson Wassinger. So going into items 1 and 2, and this is what I was alluding to when I looked at the governor's recommendation, because she has added $1,000 for the tires or maintenance. Since we're talking about the budget for fiscal year 2027, and obviously this is something that we can analyze next year, I'm almost inclined to make a motion that we strike the money for 1 and 2, but keep the language requiring the agency to submit a 5-year vehicle maintenance plan, and then reevaluate that in the subsequent budget years. Because we're talking about a budget that's 2 years down the road.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll second that for you.
Okay, so been moved and seconded in regards to removing the 1,000 and the 5,000, actually moving number 1 and then removing 5,000, but still requiring a 5-year vehicle maintenance plan. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll close my motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Motion passes. Back on 2027. Any discussion? No. All right, seeing none, Chairperson Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the Committee on the General Budget, Government Budget for Board of Barbering 2025, 2026, and 2027 be accepted.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? And you'd have as amended in your motion?
Oh, as amended.
All right. Committee, is there a second? Second by Representative Turk. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Chairperson Wassinger.
And I want to apologize. This will probably be a big discussion on this budget. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Board of Cosmetology requested a revised estimate of $1.88 million from all the cosmetology fee fund and expenditures in 1 full-time position in 2025. The revised estimate is 20.7% above the amount approved by the 24 legislature, and the sum included a total of 15 enhancement requests submitted by the agencies. IT and leasing and maintenance, $100,000, office transfer, $46,800, KBOC outside audit, $50,000, communication services, $12,000, building space rent, $24,000, and other operating expenditures of $64,000. The LBC concurred with the agency's revised estimate and deleted, I believe, all of them. The Budget Committee concurs with the LBC. For 2025, I'll stand for questions.
All right, committee, are there any questions for the chairperson? Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This wouldn't normally have been a question that popped into my mind, but once again, rent normally worked into a budget. It's usually baked in. So is this also a division of budget limiting the expenses by the Board of Cosmetology, or is there something else going on here?
Chairperson Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, they've spent their money quite well. They have had no problem spending their fund. As a matter of fact, you'll find in 2026 that they are going in the red as of 2026. and going farther in the red in 2027. And we had a robust discussion about them going into negative status.
So I guess the question from Representative Sutton is, was there an increase in their rent in fiscal year 2025? Because we also have that in 26 and 7.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe they have to move their offices. It
They
seems
have
like
to
we're
get
having
new
a lot of
offices, so
musses
there's an increase in what was proposed initially
Yes.
to where they're going now. Representative Sutton?
All right, so let's talk about that. They're moving the office, but that's a surprise prior to, that came about after the submission of their initial budget? Is that what I'm understanding?
Chairperson Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think they were surprised by the price of the lease.
Representative Sutton.
Yes, believe me, I know.
All right, so they're moving. That part wasn't a surprise, but the terms of the new lease were a surprise. Am I following this correctly?
Chairperson Wassinger.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I believe you're correct.
Okay, well, I'm hoping that when we get to the robust discussion regarding going into the red, that increased in licensing fees and inspection fees were not discussed.
Thank you,
Chairperson Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. They were totally disapproved of. I'm trying to be nice.
Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions in regards to fiscal year 2025?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's move on to the robust discussion in regards to fiscal year 2026. Chairperson Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The agency requested a revised estimate of $1.5 million from the cosmetology fee funds and another FTE. The revised estimate is 15.9% or $210,000 above the amount approved by the 24 legislature for 2025. This increase was attributable to salary and wages, $87,000 in intergovernmental communication service, $14,000 in other service fees for $1,500. The agency submitted 3 enhancement requests, IT maintenance for $45,000 and lease increase of $41,800, and IT software leasing $4,000. The LBC concurred with the agency request with the following adjustment: deleted the $45,000 for their big picture software, deleted $41,800 for the increased cost of square footage, and deleted the $4,000 from the cosmetology fee fund for the ongoing leasing of software for the database, and deleted 1.1 FTE for 2026. The House budget concurred with the LBC's recommendation in 26 with the following adjustments. If we look at their special revenue fund overview, as of 2026, they will be $228,906 in debt. And if they continue carrying that over, in 2027, they will be $621,699 in debt. They have 14 and a half employees, 14.5 FTEs, and they continue to spend money. And the director also wants to have audits he's asked for it 2 years in a row. He wants to see where they are financially. It does not take a lot of study to know that they're not doing well financially. So the House Committee on General Budget wanted to delete $118,877 from all the cosmetology fee fund to set expenditure limitations for the fund approved by the 2024 legislature for 2025. With that, I'll stand for question.
All right, thank you, Chairperson Wassinger. Committee, are there any questions in regards to fiscal year 2026?
I know.
Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can we fire the director in this room or defund the entire thing until he's gone?
Let me answer that. We cannot.
We cannot. but-
Fire.
No, we cannot,
Right.
but we have, if you look at 2027, you'll see that we've removed quite a bit from their budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion in regards to 2026? Seeing none, Chairperson Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the Board of Cosmetology for 2027, they requested $1.5 million from the Cosmetology Fee Fund and expenditures and added an FTE for 27. The revised estimate is 17% above the amount approved by the 24 Legislature for 2025. It's attributable to salaries and wages increase, intergovernmental communication services, other service fees, IT maintenance fee, lease increase, and IT software. The LBC concurred with the agency, but deleted the $45,000 for the software, $41,800 from the Cosmetology Fee Fund for the increased cost of square footage for a new office space for 2027. They deleted $4,000 from their fund for the ongoing leasing of software and deleted the one FTE. The Budget Committee concurred with LBC's recommendation for 2027 with the following adjustments. We deleted $132,403 from the Cosmetology Fee Fund to set expenditure limitations for the fund at the amount approved by the 2024 Legislature for 2025. Our robust discussion asked the Board of Cosmetology to go back and take apart their agency because they're overstaffed, overfunded, and they're taking taxpayer dollars and they're going in the hole. This is a call for help, and they need to take care of it. With that, I'll stand for questions.
All right, committee, any questions in regard to fiscal year 2027? All right, seeing none, Chairperson Wassinger, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Appropriations Committee approve the General Budget Committee recs for the 2027 year for the Board of Cosmetology.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Sutton. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. All right, Chairperson Wassinger.
All right, this is the Barb Show. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Governmental Ethics Commission presented their 25 budget. The agency requested a revised estimate of $863,869 in all funds, including $560,000 of SGF in expenditures and 8.5 positions for 2025. There's no change from the amount approved by the 2024 Legislature. The LBC concurred with the agency's revised estimate, and the Budget Committee concurred with the LBC's recommendation in 2025. I'll stand for questions.
All right, committee, are there any questions for Chairperson Wassinger in regards to fiscal year 2025? Seeing none, Chairperson Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. FY 2026 for Governmental Ethics requested $1.1 million in all funds, including $788,000 for SGF and expenditures and 10.5 positions in 26. This is an all funds increase of $248,000 or 28.9%, including an increase of $233,000 or 42.1% above the 2025 approved amount. The request included additional personnel and office relocation for $186,000 SGF and 2 full-time positions to add a compliance attorney and 1 auditor, $40,000 for building space rent, $10,000 SGF for one-time moving expenses, and a decrease of $8,500 of SGF for eliminating the conflict counsel contract with the Office of the Attorney General. Absent the enhancement request, the request includes an increase of almost $20,000 attributable to increased employer contributions to health benefits, medical benefits, contractual services, including a new building space rental of $12,600, employee parking for $8,000, the monumental building surcharge assessed by the Department of Administration for the office space of $4,236, and janitorial services due to the transition of almost $3,000. The LBC concurred with the agency request for 2026 with the following adjustments. They deleted the 236,407 SGF in 2 full-time positions to not add a compliance attorney and 1 auditor, additional office space, full one-time moving costs, and not to add 8,500 from SGF to keep the conflict counsel contract, for a total deletion of 227,907 to FY26. The Budget Committee concurred with the LBC's recommendation for FY26. With that, I'll stand for questions.
All right, committee, have any questions for Chairperson Wassinger in regards to fiscal year 2026? Representative Ballard.
Thank you. Can I ask, why did you delete the 2 FTE positions?
Chairperson Wassinger.
They haven't been able to fill them, correct? We're talking about 26. He wanted to know, she wanted to know why we deleted the two employees.
Yes, ma'am.
Was this the one that?
That was related to the, and that was related to.
2026 on one.
Yes, ma'am, and that was related to the potential litigation costs.
I think they deleted one themselves, but they also deleted someone because of their litigation that had been concluded.
Representative Ballard.
Okay, and the one-time moving costs, I mean, that seems to be kind of unusual. I mean, normally we do cover moving costs.
All of
Person
the
Walsinger.
agencies that, thank you, Mr. Chair, all the agencies that came appear to be moving. So they've been adding it as a supplemental increase.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's kind of the direction I was going. We got a lot of moving going on.
Yep.
Is there, I mean, maybe we should wait for Department of Administration to draw us a map on this thing, but any explanation given for why we're just playing musical chairs out here?
Let me give some insight in regards to this. So when we had the special committee in December, there was a discussion about this, and they were wanting to move because they didn't have the space for the additional FTEs that they were asking for. We did not do the FTE, so therefore there was no reason to move. So they were asking for one-time moving fees because they were hoping that we would approve the FTEs, which is not being done, so therefore they do not need to move.
So they're funding a bill that hasn't passed yet.
Yes.
I think I understand. Thank you.
Representative Turk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to mention that the DOA is coming up, and we had additional conversations about that with them, so thank you.
Any further discussion in regards to 2026? All right, seeing none, Chairperson Wassinger, 2027.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The agency requested $1.1 million in all funds, including $330,000 in expenditures and 10.5 positions, FTE positions for 2026. This is an all funds increase of $250,000 or 29.2%, including an SGF increase of $225,000 or 40.4% above the 25 approved amount. The request included one enhancement for additional personnel and office relocation. And absent the enhancement request, it also included a $31,941 cost of $5,407 SGF due to all other adjustments. This increase primarily attributable to increased employer contributions to health benefits. Also, there's contractual service increases, new building space rental, which they're not going to have, employee parking, the monumental building surcharge, and janitorial service in Office 365. The LBC concurred with the agency request with the following adjustments. They deleted $228,000 in SGF, 2 FTEs, to not add a compliance attorney and 1 auditor, additional office space, and add 8,500 in SGF to keep the conflict counsel contract for a total deletion of 218,000. The Budget Committee concurred with LBC for 2027 with the following adjustment. We deleted the 5,400 SGF for operating expenses for FY 2027. Before I open it for questions, we had a discussion of wanting to know if they're setting aside any money for future litigation payouts or increases. Are they considering that? And they insisted that they weren't. They didn't have to. It was a hypothetical. Our committee was not happy. I'll stand for questions.
All right, thank you, Representative Wassinger, or Chairperson Wassinger. Any questions in regards to fiscal year 2027 that might make the chairperson happy?
It's not just me.
All right, seeing none, Chairperson Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass the Governmental Ethics Commission budget for 2025, 26, and 27 as presented.
Committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Turk. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Chairperson Wassinger, with the time remaining and looking at the next 3 budgets that you have, it appears that probably the easiest of the 3 would be the Secretary of State.
Sure.
And so why don't you jump to the Office of the Secretary of State, and the other 2 will probably carry over until Monday.
Okay.
Chairperson Wassinger.
I don't have this in front of me. I don't know why. All right, excuse me. The agency for 2025 did not have any SGF funds reappropriated from 24 to 25. The agency request included an increase of $800,000 from Federal Help America Vote Act election security funds. And in 2023 and 24, they received $1 million each from election security grants and from the Federal Election Assistance Committee, and the $2 million amount required a state match of 20%. So the agency, excuse me, the agency added $800,000 from special revenue funds for HAVA aid payments to assist counties in enhancing their election cybersecurity measures in 2025. The LBC had no changes. Let's see. Do you have our committee? Thank you. The Budget Committee concurs with the LBC's recommendation in 2025 with the following adjustment. We consider the agency's additional request for the 1.7 million SGF in 2025, which includes the following: 200,000 in SGF to meet the state match requirement of 20% for the $1 million of HAVA security grant funds. This match is required to be provided by May 26. This would increase more cybersecurity efforts and help counties improve their security. And adding 1.5 million SGF to modernize the state regulation making process by implementing an electronic regulation system. The current regulatory process is paper-based and has remained unchanged since the 1960s. The agency has issued an RFP to establish an electronic regulation process which will allow regulations to be Approved and stamped by 4 Kansas agencies: Department of Administration, Office of the Attorney General, Kansas Division of Budget, and the Office of the Secretary of State. They anticipate selection of a vendor in 2025. As part of this, they estimate savings in regulation-making efficiency of almost $1 million. With that, I'll stand for questions.
All right, thank you, Chairperson Wassinger. Committee, are there any questions in regards to 2025? Seeing none, you may move on to 2026.
All right.
Representative Tarwater.
Oops.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm sorry for slowing things down, but the recommendation was for the Committee on Appropriations to consider that. Are we going to consider that or just move on?
Well, that's when I asked for questions in regards to 2025, and then there weren't any until very late. So if you have questions in regards to the items, ask the chairperson now.
Madam Chair, do we need to consider that, or are we just going to move on that?
Chairperson Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's something we need to consider because right now, being chair of Joint Administrative Rules and Regs, papers get lost, papers get mixed up, papers don't get stamped. They keep telling us that they are. We need to have an electronic system. We cannot look up to see how a regulation has changed, what they've done, what they've deleted, what they've added. So with this $1.5 million process, we will finally be in the 21st century, getting to understand what is in regulation. I believe a lot of people that are affected by these regulations cannot find them unless they ask for all this paperwork, and legislators can't tell what they changed, when they changed it, what happened, and this will eliminate that problem.
Representative Tarwater.
I don't know where to go from here, sir. I'm sorry.
Vice Chair Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if we were interested in the 1.5 million, they want SGF. Could we not take it out of the ending balance of the Technology Communication Fee Fund that is growing? It's at 5.9 million, and it says its use is to cover the cost of technology systems and support services. Would this not fit within that classification?
It will.
Chairperson Wassinger.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. It will. It would. I believe the Secretary of State's office wants it from any fund that we can give it to them.
So if it fits under this fund and it would clean up things, then I would make a motion that we approve the 1.5 million, not SGF, but from their growing fee fund, the Technology Communications Fee Fund.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Sutton. Discussion on the motion. Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With regards to the amount, 1.5 million, they've already issued an RFP. I'm assuming it hasn't come back down. What's the due date on that RFP?
Chairperson Wassinger.
We don't have that in front of us. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize.
Representative Sutton.
All right, well, I mean, that kind of begs the question, where did that 1.5 number come from then?
Chairperson Wassinger.
I was told by the Secretary of State that they had been investigating how much that would cost, and that is a rounded estimate, and they would spend less if they've got an RFP for less.
Representative Sutton.
All right, so we don't know how much it costs. What if it costs more?
Chairperson Wassinger. I'd assume they'd have to come back to us to authorize
It
the
absolutely
increase.
would. That's.
Okay. They did the RFP. Thank you, Mr. Chair. They did the RFP in February, on February of 2025.
Well, we're not there yet.
I know, that is supposed to be done. I don't have the answer to that right now. I'll have to get it.
Representative Sutton.
All right, I'm just thinking that even if the RFP comes back February 1st, in February, I'm not sure we're going to be pulling the trigger and paying for anything during fiscal year '25. I'm thinking rolling this into '26 is probably a more intelligent move, particularly since A, we don't know the amount we're requesting, and B, we don't know when the RFP is coming back, nor what minor details that will be included in the proposal, like when we start paying for it. So I would probably make a substitute motion to roll this motion, which I agree with, drawing from a different account, to 2026 rather than the 2025 budget.
All right, committee, you've heard the substitute motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Tarwater. The only thing that I would say in regards to this motion is actually it says the agency anticipates selection of a vendor in fiscal year 2025.
Yeah.
So I would probably oppose a substitute motion because it says that they're wanting to select a vendor in the current fiscal year that we're in. Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I believe that may very well happen. However, at that time, until that time, we won't know the amount, and we don't know when we start paying.
Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was raising my hand to comment, but I'll go ahead and with the second anyway. Someone from the Secretary of State's office alerted me that the RFP closes February 25th.
All right. Thank you for that information. Vice Chair Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only thing I would say is it's in the fund already. It's not going to make a difference, really. I mean, we could postpone it, but if they have a good RFP, I would prefer them to move on it and to start working on it in 2025. We have 6 months left in 2025. It's not SGF. This money's sitting there in the fund. And so I'd prefer allowing them to move forward with the project and, draw down this fund now rather than wait, because I don't know that waiting really does anything except we know what it is, but we're just giving up to that amount authorization.
Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, Representative Sutton, you may close on the substitute motion.
Correct. Let's not fund bills before they're passed, and that's just another indication of it. We're funding this. We don't know how much. We don't know when it's going to come due. We don't know when we're going to write these checks, but by golly, we're going to fund it anyway. Not sound budgetary practice. Not close.
All right, committee, you heard the substitute motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
The noes appear to have it. The noes do have it. Motion fails. We're back on the original motion by Vice Chair Williams. Any further discussion in regards to the original motion? Seeing none, Vice Chair Williams, you may close.
I close.
Committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right. Thank you, Representative Tarwater, for opening that discussion, because we actually had a robust discussion about that. Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And at great risk, I want to ask about the $200,000 that draws down $1.2 million in federal funds for election security. I'll make a motion to add that so that we can get the $1 million from the federal government.
It's already in there.
We already put it in there.
They did add it.
They did that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think there's some confusion with the Secretary of State's office not knowing what was included, because I had a conversation with him yesterday, and then I thought it was already included, which it is, and the Budget Committee recommended. It is. It says right there.
200,000 SGF.
Oh, I consider. Oh. So it's not in. Right. All right, Representative Tarwater. Good catch again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move that we add the $200,000 as well to draw down the $1.2 million in election security funds.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion, seconded by Representative Mosier. Discussion on the motion. Vice Chair Williams.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Since it is election security and it will include technology, can we not also take this out of the technology communications fee fund and not use SGF? It's a question first.
Chairperson Wassinger.
The Secretary of State's office, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Secretary of State's office is trying to reduce their fees and cannot do that if they don't use SGF for regulatory modernization. That's what I was told. The Secretary of State is trying to reduce fees to taxpayers.
Vice Chair Williams.
Okay, I don't think that they answered my question. My question is, can we pay, regardless of whether they want us to or not, can we use the technology communication fee fund to pay for that $200,000 instead of SGF?
When I was chairman of this committee, I don't believe you can use that fund for HAVA. I think it has to come from SGF, if I recall right, when I was chair of the committee. And I believe Representative Sutton was chair of that committee as well.
I was, and I concur with that. I believe that has to be SGF spending. I'm not sure we can pull it from a fee fund. However, I did want to comment on the fact of trying to reduce fees by supplanting your budget from other means is a disingenuous route. I would not recommend that nor approve it if it comes before us. But in this case, I don't believe that we can use the fee fund to draw down HAVA funds.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Representative Tarwater, you may close.
Thank you, sir. I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. We have about 2 minutes before we need to be on the floor, so we will do 2020, unless you think you can do 2026 on that short of a man.
There's nothing added to 2026.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Office of the Secretary of State budget for 2026 requested $8.6 million from all federal funds and special revenue funds for 2026, an increase of $1.5 million or 21.8% above the FY25 approved amount. The increase is attributed to increases in contractual services, including rents for the HAVA program, replacing and servicing fees, printing and advertising for HAVA, as well as the request increases for HAVA aid payments of $500,000 to improve election security, to enhance security, and increases in salaries and wages, and 1.6 FTE. They're offset by decreases from all other adjustments of almost $52,000. They did not include any enhancement requests. LBC concurred with the agency's revised estimate for 26, as well did the Budget Committee. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
All right, committee, are there any questions in regards to the Office of the Secretary of State for 2026? Representative Tarwater?
Absolutely not, sir. Thank you.
All right. All right, seeing none, Chairperson Wassinger, you may make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that when the appropriations approve the budget for the Secretary of State's office for the years 2025 and 2026. As amended.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Turk. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, until 9 a.m. on Monday morning, we are adjourned.